not everybody has access to internet. Not everybody has access to a phone. Not everybody has an address. So if there's no way of walking into a place to get advice, the people who will be left behind, as always, are the people on the fringes of our society, the people in most poverty. Yeah. If it's, well, again, do I eat? Do I feed my kids, or do I put 20 quid credit on my phone? Right. And that's almost an easy decision for the young people to make, or even families to make. Yeah. So we're putting barriers between people and their ability to get advice, not just advice, but claim benefit.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Money Matters interview feature. We wanted actually to commemorate Stephen for his wonderful appearance last time and his dodgy 4G by bringing him back with Wi-Fi. Unless you've got 4G on now, maybe I'm assuming.
This is Wi-Fi. We strung the wire ourselves from the Wi-Fi hub across to the mill. Fabulous. Yeah,
it's fantastic. And what's even better, actually, we're both actually not in any. Well, I could say I'm not in an office, and I was just telling Stephen I've got a bookcase behind me of books that I've definitely not read, but they're there for fancy more than anything else. Don't even know what the titles are, to be fair.
Looks good though. It does look good.
Yeah. Apparently, Marlon Brando book. That's definitely not mine. But that's
very pseudo owning it. Yeah, well done.
Very wonderful actor. Yeah. Wonderful actor.
Absolutely.
The Godfather. Top film. And it's brilliant. And you're in a wonderful cabin-esque place. I mean, you were telling me before actually we came on and recorded this what it was. But
that's right. I'm at work, and our let's call it staff room is the second floor of an old 19th century woodworkers workshop. 3-story old building. It's beautiful. Yeah.
You know what? Just for a bit of context, Stephen, what is work to you on this?
I make cosmetic products. I'm a contract manufacturer for hair care products.
Fantastic.
You go. So I make other people's product, so nobody knows it's us. So we just make under contract.
Yeah. Wonderful, smashing. Okay,
well, so somebody's got to do it.
So what? Yeah.
I'm looking at your hair and thinking I could send you a few samples, maybe.
Yeah. Well, what would it do?
It would make it shiny. It would make it feel fuller. It would promote growth, I'm sure.
Yeah. Absolutely good plug using me. Very, very, very good. Very good. But let's bring it back a second. So obviously you were on last week with Matthew Kiddle, who's a founder of Homeless Not Hopeless. Now, you're also involved in that program as well. So just a quick reminder, we're going to say a quick reminder of who you are. We've already just basically discussed that, introduce your name, what you're doing, what your work is. That's even more than last week. But reminder of where you're based and what you do with Homeless Not Hopeless.
Yeah, Homeless Not Hopeless, as you said, quite rightly established by Matthew in December of 2019. I came on board in the just before Christmas and really started getting stuck in the January of 2020. We're based in Keighley, but we do work. The work we actually do on the street is in Bradford Town Centre, and we support homeless people, people with insecure accommodation, and people who just struggle to make ends meet. And we do that by providing food, both an actual hot meal. We supply clothing and a food bank. Yeah, a team of probably 40 regular volunteers, and at any given time, 25 will come out on a Wednesday night. And we pretty much set up almost like a department store in the arches near Bradford Foster Square railway station.
No, that's fantastic. It really, really is. And the amount of people that you get involved. And again, just touching on that last week, if you want to hear more about Matthew's side of it and all of that last week, then, well, watch the one last week. It's quite straightforward, really. And Stephen's there too as well, in brief patches when we can get his Wi-Fi to where we can get his data to work. So again, worth watching that. So one thing we did touch on a little bit last week, but not too much, is, well, first of all, Matthew actually mentioned that you helped him out not only with Homeless Not Hopeless, but individually with his own life and in getting him into actual accommodation. I felt like it was appropriate to sort of touch on that a little bit more. Because he wanted to talk about it more, but we didn't necessarily have the time. Can you explain what you did to Matthew to help him out in that situation?
I think Matthew is far too kind. If anything, my friendship with Matt, which we hit it off pretty much straight away, has been one where I've got a car, I've got some resource, I am able to go with him to meet people. He's far too generous in saying I did it for him. He is, he's a self-starting young man. Let's not take anything away from that. But yeah, I guess I have the ability and some talent and some grey hairs, some age that have allowed me to give Matt a bit of support when it comes to him finding some accommodation and the paperwork that's needed to go through that. This is, not just Matthew's case. The path from homelessness into home is incredibly complicated. There's not a tremendous amount of support out there by the state. Yeah, and the support that existed during the COVID years has all been taken away. So if somebody is living on the streets and wants to get themselves into some form of accommodation, the chances of them getting any kind of council-run accommodation are practically zero, especially if you're a young man. Yeah. So really the only route they can go down is to try and find the private rented route.
Yeah.
The bureaucracy and paperwork and the pitfalls and the things that can go wrong there are numerous. Yeah. So the only thing I really did for Matt was read the paperwork and help him in the discussions, and give him a bit of support from that point of view. But yeah, it is really, really, really difficult for somebody to climb back out of that spiral once they've dropped off any kind of housing market. Yeah.
That's really interesting, actually.
And as a single man, the amount of housing allowance that you would be given is really forcing you into a one-bedroom flat or almost a bedsit, run by private landlords who are just ruthless. Yeah. And it's very difficult. And then you've got to apply for the benefit and hope it comes through. There's a security deposit to find. There's many barriers put in place for people to find themselves into some kind of accommodation.
Yeah. No, that's a really illuminating point, actually. And how many people then, because this is something you'll have an obvious insight to, I can already tell, how many people on the streets are in that position where they say, right, okay, I've sort of got myself in check. I want to make the step into the household. I want to get a room. I want to start to rebuild my life. How many people are in that position, but are simply, well, one, the state services aren't there, and two, they don't have the money to jump into the private landlord situation. Yeah.
I'd say in Bradford, from the people that we support, there's probably 30 or 40 people actually in that position now. It's interesting. Bradford produced some statistics, and I'm going to paraphrase the numbers because the last stuff they published was from about 2019. Officially, allegedly, at that time, there were 60 people sleeping rough in Bradford. Yeah. But there were 4,000 people, right, who had, during that year, families contacted Bradford Council needing support to maintain their position in accommodation. 4,000 families just in Bradford alone. Yeah. And so somewhere between the 65 who are out and out homeless, there's probably another 100 people who from time to time will spend a night on the street. Yeah. And I'd say that 100 people are the kind of people who are desperately trying to get themselves onto some kind of housing ladder. Well, it's not a housing ladder, is it? No. It is secure accommodation that they can call theirs. Yeah. And even then, you are literally monthly payment to monthly payment to monthly payment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a cycle that we need to break, and that we can do. This is the really annoying thing. It's not difficult to break that. And in the scheme of the sums of money that we have seen are available to support society in the last 2 years, yeah, it is a drop in the ocean. It's a drop. It's a fraction of what we spent on a test and trace system that just doesn't work. Yeah.
The test and trace system could be another feature in itself. It probably wouldn't be on this particular channel. It would probably be on something slightly different. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. talking actually about a very relevant topic, which is the astronomical costs of the cost of living, and
Yep.
in particular from a housing perspective. So obviously, it seems that a lot of people with the privilege that are growing up into this society, young adults, teenagers, middle adults, maybe, who will say young adults who maybe still have the privilege to be living at home in a relatively sized house that was paid for by parents in the 80s and the 90s, when cost of living and wages were like this, they were together. And now cost of living's there, and then, sorry, no, wages are there, and then cost of living is going, whoop, it's gone straight upwards, and it's gone crazy. I mean, realistically, the society now, well, the economics of society now are quite broken, aren't they, in many ways? And it leads to a situation, doesn't it, where I suppose, to quote maybe, so I mean, I'm thinking Great Gatsby here, when they used to talk about old money a lot, and old money was the sort of thing that gave you privilege and wealth and whatnot. Well, old money is the thing that keeps people in stability now, often, isn't it? Because the younger people who don't really think about these issues quite generally have a family to back them up, with a house, with the means to live on 2 feet without having to fly the nest and sort it out yourself. That happens quite a lot, doesn't it?
No, I think it absolutely does. Let's look at, I live in a village called Calton. Calton is a working village. It was a mill village. The vast majority of people 50 years ago worked in the local mill. There's nothing upper class or posh about it. But I've got 3 daughters, 2 of which are of the age where they should be looking for their own homes. Neither of them will ever be able to afford to buy a house in Calton. And that is absolutely bizarre.
I might jump into that bracket there, Stephen, actually.
Yeah. In fact, my eldest daughter, who has moved away to Ban Olswick, because house prices are a little bit more reasonable over there. And even over there, a starter home, 2-bedroom starter home, £140,000, to raise a mortgage for £140,000, the young people are nowhere near on the kind of earnings that are required to do that. And it does annoy me. This is before we start talking about what is supposedly the national living wage. A national living wage that wouldn't support a mortgage for a £50,000 house is not a living wage. A national living wage that wouldn't pay a rental on an average 2-bedroom house is not a living wage. But our entire tax system has spent the last 20, 30 years actually protecting wealthy people. It is clearly geared to increase the wealth of the wealthy, and at the absolute expense of people on lower incomes.
I mean, looking at it makes for depressing reading. I mean, from my point of view, even well, it might shock you now, but I'm 23. I was described as 30 by someone else when I had the beard, but now I've not got the beard. I look about 16.
All I can say is I'm glad you didn't ask me.
18, is it not?
I'd have said 18. I'm surprised you even be at school.
Oh, well. Well, I think if you look back a week, I was actually on about you being 18, by the way. I was being a bit facetious. But, if you go back a week with the beard, it's the territory where you get ID'd in the pub. But then now is the territory I get ID'd in. But with the beard, nothing. I mean, 30, 28, 27, I'm thinking, oh, my word. And then now it's like 12. But, no, I think we're doing okay. Back to it. It is really quite depressing how you sort of, let's take away from the homelessness for a second. If for whatever reason, I went to university, worked in China, been a sort of around the world a little bit already for 23, now working in my own local area, hoping to build up those finances before maybe flying the nest at some point myself. But it is quite a bleak scenario when you look at it and you see, for example, the cost of renting in a city in Manchester, for example. It would be quite extortionate, and it's only 1 bedroom, and suddenly
absolutely
half, 3/4 of your weekly wage are going on rent.
Absolutely. Look, when I'm not 23. It'll come as a shock to people watching this to realise I'm a little older.
Just pushing 25, isn't it?
Just about, yeah. Still get ID'd at the supermarket, no. But I left home at 16. It was a choice. I rented a house off a friend who was working down south. I bought that house at the age of 17. I was earning £3,000 a year. The house was £4,000, right? Now the bank manager, because we had bank managers in them days, he actually came to look at the house. Bless him. You know, he said, "Well, before I pass your mortgage, I'm going to just come and look at it." And he turned up one night and had a look around and says, "Yes, Steve, this is a great house. I'll sign your mortgage off for that." Right? But that was at least, you know, it was just over a year's pay for me. Right? You cannot buy a house. Nobody can buy a house on the earnings of 20, 25-year-old people for just over their annual salary. Can you? It just doesn't exist anymore.
No.
Right? And then the house prices went crazy. Yeah. And earnings just never caught up.
So yeah, actually brings me on to a feature we did a while ago with mortgage advisor Daniel Jackson. And that was quite interesting because he was discussing when the pandemic came about, how he expected, and many mortgage advisors expected, the house prices to crash. But then Rishi Sunak put into place a scheme whereby the stamp duty tax rate, essentially the amount that you had to pay without paying tax, was increased to £500,000. So people could get houses below 500,000, and that would essentially they wouldn't have to pay anything above that on tax above that. Now the usual rate is 115,000, I think.
That's
so
right.
To go to 500 at that time, that was quite crazy. Everyone was losing their mind. Everyone's going, "Oh yeah, we need to get it now." And then the house price average actually went up in the pandemic, which was quite incredible, really.
We have seen through the pandemic, even in this village, right? An average 3-bedroom house would have been 185,000. It's now 285,000, and that is literally in the last 18 months. And that's just well, doesn't the fact that if your mortgage payment is such a massive part of your monthly income, doesn't that make you housing insecure? Are we just building in insecurity? Into people's lives. It really is. I think a massive problem.
Well, you've just touched it. I mean, let's take it back now. So you said last week in a quote that I savvily put to the front of the video because I thought it sounded very good, about the width of a cigarette paper being the difference between person and social inequality. I thought that was very, very well put. As an English graduate, there's a big metaphor in there, so I thought it was great. But no, very serious as well, on a serious level. Yeah. And we've sort of hit the nail on the head really there as well. Like, essentially, if you're in a relatively well-paid job, you're in this accommodation, but you don't have family to fall back on, it's all going okay, and then you lose that job, you're still the landlord's not going to say, "Oh well, it's okay, chap. We can pay this in X amount of months." It's relentless.
There should be, and there might be one. And if there ain't, maybe I need to invent one: a sustainability index, right, for society. Yeah, and societies break down when they are unstable. And my concept of stability around community involves, is there a school, is there a church, is there a pub, is there a shop? That kind of infrastructure in a local community leads to the stability and sustainability of a local community. But yeah, the entire finance that underpins society can either create stability and sustainability, or it can lead to instability and unsustainability. Yeah. It's not even a word. You're an English graduate. I made the word up there, but you know what I mean. And I think if there was a sustainability index for our society, and the bigger the number, the less sustainable it is. I think it's skyrocketed in the last 10 years.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it is quite something. It certainly is quite something. I mean, I sort of touched on this a bit before last week, actually, and it almost does come across sometimes. It's relevant, but not relevant in some situations. So when we talk about people going into debt, having that financial education, I sort of touched on it last week, and you quite rightly said that you actually said, "Let's play a game." And you said, imagine you have you have to decide what to put in a bag when you're on the streets, and you're and that's very fair, and it sort of brings it home. But when we're sort of talking about this situation as well, and then people find themselves with so many monetary problems, do you think that, I suppose, the education of how to get out of those situations, know who to go to, that could still be implemented? Because when you do hit rock bottom and then rock bottom again through that, then it's important, I suppose, to know exactly where to turn, because suddenly a horrible problem goes,
I completely agree with that,
much worse. And if you don't see that avenue out, whether, should I claim, but I know it sounds a bit true, should I claim bankruptcy, should I go for a debt relief order, should I go for an IVA? I know it sounds, that's the kind of the next level on, but again, even to those people in those positions, they probably aren't even aware there's so many free debt advice helpers out there that try to help them out, I suppose.
Education around financial matters is pitiful. Is pitiful. Yes. Yeah, more people leave school knowing how to bake a cake than knowing how to manage finances. So
I can't even bake a cake, so that's better than most.
Well, you can bake if you can afford eggs. So education right in at the secondary school level would be useful. I think more signposting in society when things start to go wrong, more support, more support for people, numbers for people to ring where there is genuinely help on the other end of the phone, would be really useful. But I still come back to, right, if your day-to-day dilemma is paying the electricity bill or putting food in your kid's mouth,
it's tough.
We can have as many helplines as we like. The minute we as a society regard poverty as a crime, as a national disgrace, I think we will get better. We will get better.
Yeah, that's why I sort of said it, because you said it last week, really, about having financial education. And when I sort of said it last week, I said it in a different sense. I said it sort of for budgeting and things like that. Yeah. When in reality, like you say, that could maybe come across as a touch patronizing. Yes, certainly relevant in some situations. But like you say, when the decisions are that fine, you don't really have any wiggle room, and it literally is the lesser of two evils, then so
it is and who don't I pay today? Who don't I pay today? Who's going to shout at me less? Yeah,
and that's sort of why I sort of jumped on the second question as such, just to sort of go beyond that and say, well, when it really does get that bad, it would be good if people had the education, the understanding, the mindset to say, to make calculated decisions in terms of, right, I owe this amount to people, this is going to get very bad very quickly. Who do I go to? Where do I go to?
Yeah, absolutely. It can sort that out. Absolutely. And that is absolutely great. But we still regard, and there is still a stigma attached to people actually seeking help. There's a stigma attached to people claiming benefits, claiming the benefits that they're entitled to. Yeah. And I don't know whether this is a fact I've made up on the spot or it's true. But allegedly,
that's common in certain political discussion.
Absolutely. If I speak like it's true, it's true. But there's more benefits unclaimed than there are benefits fraudulently claimed.
Yeah.
And I instinctively believe that statement to be true. There are more people out there who could claim benefits that they are entitled to than necessarily go out of the way to fraudulently claim benefits they're not entitled to. I instinctively believe that to be true.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those, isn't it, where you have a group of people that obviously do fraudulently claim, and that does happen. Obviously, people do that, and that gets reported in the news, and it almost, like you said, that creates an envelope, that stigma, and makes it grow outwards and outwards. And it's similar to certain minority groups that get a level of stigma attached to them. It paints them in a bad picture, and then suddenly people have sort of secondary opinions that form in their heads, and they're saying, well, anyone who's doing this must be like this. And then you get that sort of stigma. I can completely understand that. And you're right, there is a stigma. And what is interesting, actually, recently, Money and Pension Service have claimed or said that they intend with cuts to the debt advice service, they intend to cut all face-to-face, or the majority of face-to-face interactions between advisors and people in debt or financial hardship, which again, we were sort of saying there's a stigma to opening up. Obviously, in the pandemic, we've had to use things like phone calls, phone conversations, and Zoom to have that interaction. But in the past, and many people have been quoted, debt advisors have been quoted saying this, in the past, actually having that face-to-face interaction can help break down barriers. It shows you're talking to a real person. It shows that there's a comfortability there in that small space, something you might not get virtually. And that looks set to be scrapped, which is a very big problem.
Absolutely. And not everybody has access to internet. Not everybody has access to a phone. Not everybody has an address. So if there's no way of walking into a place to get advice, the people who will be left behind, as always, are the people on the fringes of our society, the people in most poverty. Yeah. If it's, well, again, do I eat? Do I feed my kids, or do I put 20 quid credit on my phone? Right. And that's almost an easy decision for the young people to make, or even families to make. Yeah. So we're putting barriers between people and their ability to get advice, not just advice, but claim benefit, which would be great for the Chancellor's budgeting, I'm sure. Right. But all that does is exacerbate the problem between the poorest people in our society and the wealthiest people in our society. Yeah. The cynic in me says that don't matter because we don't hear from the poorest people in the society. They don't have a voice, right? The least likely people to participate electorally. They're the least likely people to ring up a phone-in program. So we go through life, and providing we don't upset rich people and we keep the problems hidden, we pretend they don't exist. The biggest problem we've had in doing our work in Bradford Foster Square is people going for the train complain that the place is a mess. Yeah. And for all, I have got a great working relationship with both the police in Bradford and the council-run services, and they have a homeless outreach partnership team, and I genuinely believe trying to do a big good work. The biggest problem we have is the pushback from all those agencies, because we're doing what we do where we do it, right? Because people see it and people complain. Yeah. That's out of sight, out of mind. And you know what? I think we should do it right smack bang in the middle of Bradford and Leeds, and we should have big lights on it, and people should come and face the shame of our society, because it is a shame.
Bradford, Leeds, London, Manchester, Burnley.
Yeah, and these are the places where people will be drawn to, because actually, if you're diving in bins to try and find something to eat, then there's more bins. It's these large cities are where people who are homeless tend to be attracted to, because there's more opportunity for them to get through the day.
Yeah, and worth note as well, Curry on the Street, with their providing curries to people in Nelson and Burnley, and Church on the Street as well.
Absolutely, there are some great organisations. There are some great organisations. Some of the churches do fantastic work. Some of the mosques do some fantastic work. A lot of Asian businesses, like certainly the food outlets, do some great work, and they've brought food to us on a night. Mustn't take that away from it. But we are entirely reliant on voluntary aid to feed people, and it can't be right. It can't be right.
No, it can't. It absolutely can't. And we sort of touched on that last week as well. Christmas time coming up. So, well, first of all, what do you see happening with Homeless Not Hopeless during Christmas? Have you got any plans? And secondly, what do you think the situation is going to be like on the street around Christmas time? Will it get worse, possibly, given that it's a time
we'll continue to work as normal through the Christmas period. We're actually having we've hired a hotel back room, and we're going to try and do one of our outreaches as a Christmas party inside, and get some food on for that. And that's been set up to go ahead. Obviously, it gets colder. Yeah, so we will be giving out more sleeping bags. We'll be giving out more tents. The ridiculous thing is, if the temperature falls below zero for, I think, 2 days, some emergency powers click in, and there's some money made available for giving people accommodation. But you sleep on the streets at 1 degree and sleep on the streets at 0 degrees. It's no different, right? You are freezing cold. It gets right into your bones. So yeah, we'll see the problem just continuing, not necessarily getting worse, not necessarily getting better, but the potential for people becoming ill, with very little access to healthcare, becomes more extreme. At those temperatures, people will be ill. People will die. People die on the street this year, like they do absolutely every year.
Yeah,
and it's entirely avoidable.
No, it really is quite tragic. Actually, you did touch on this, and it's something I will do after we do this. You have a donation centre as well, and I think maybe a good chance to put that out there.
We've got. If people visit our Facebook page, Homeless Not Hopeless, there's some bank account numbers on there. We have a Go Get Fund Me page that people give. We've got an Amazon wish list. So if people don't want to give cash but want to give us items, all the links are on there. They can go to the Amazon wish list and send us some of the items that are on there. And we try and keep that updated with the things that we most likely need. What we could really do with, whilst I'm plug, is people pledging £1 or £2 a month. Yeah. We've got our rent, turns out about £820 a month. And it's essential for us to have that unit, for us to be able to do the work we do. That nobody's given us that money other than the people who support us and follow us. And a regular standing order, even of a couple of pounds, if we take away our rent insecurity, the last thing we want to do is to become homeless. Then we can actually carry on just doing the work, without worrying about the finance. I tend to look after the bank account and the cash on that side. My company has supported H&H when it's been a bit short, and we will obviously continue to do that. But listen, Johnny, £2 a month, mate. Yeah, it's no. Set it standing, please. Thank you.
Absolutely, no, I will do that as soon as we finish this, actually. And best of luck with both things, with the hair products and with also the H&H setup, because I think it's a wonderful thing that you do. Like you said, whether you should have to do it or not is a completely different conversation. But the fact that you do it,
we will continue to do it until the day I go out there and I think, you know what? Well done. The state, society is taking care of it itself. But until then, we will continue to do it, and supported by a massive group of really dedicated people. Too many to mention, who I love to bits.
Yeah, fantastic.
And inspired by Matthew. I got to say, he is an inspiration to us. He really is a guy that's really gone through the mill. None of us can even begin to think what his life has been like. So it's an inspiration.
Lovely words to finish there. I think you sort of said it yourself. Lovely word to Matthew. Again, just to echo what I said about 20 seconds ago, best of luck with all the things that you are doing. Wonderful guy, do a wonderful job in the local community. And absolutely smashing work. Pleasure talking to you with Wi-Fi.
Thank you. Yeah. Cheers, mate.
Well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to smash the like button, give us a nice comment, and most importantly, hit the subscribe bell. You hit the subscribe bell, it means you can keep up to date with all of the latest features that come on this channel, whether that be Money Matters or something else associated with Money Support Group. Hit the subscribe bell. Until next time, thanks for listening, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of your week.